So, my investigative story is going to be focused on early specialization in youth sports and why parents should be very cautious about this. So, my hypothesis is going to be getting kids involved in sport too early in their lives, specifically younger than 7 years old, may make them feel overwhelmed and unhappy, and may also lead to injury due to practicing or playing too much without proper recovery time. Okay, so this gym is actually near my apartment, and I've driven by it a couple times. And I did some research online and just got interested in it. There are 400 little gyms in the world, and 10 here in Houston. The one in Bel Air near my apartment is actually the biggest one in Houston. So at that gym, kids can start classes as early as 4 months old, which is really early, and then classes for kids under 3 years old. The main focus is on motor skills and also promoting early development. And then they also have gymnastics classes for pre-kindergarten and grade school kids, as well as dance, karate, and sports skills classes. And now I'm going to play a video from their website to give you a better idea of what classes look like.
My son Sean and I are total sports nuts. Well, we're nuts about watching sports anyway. Most kids Sean's age only play soccer, but at the little gym, he's been able to explore other sports too. As his number one fan, it's been fun watching him discover there's really no I in team. After Sean's last class, he told me one of his teammates was better than Michael Jordan. They had been playing baseball that day, but hey, it's a start.
So as you can see, the classes seem like they're fun and they seem to be giving kids good skills, but of course this is something that's on the gym's website, so it should be promoting the gym and it's not going to raise any red flags. But I did list some questions to consider. So how early is too early for a child to get involved in sport? 4 months is really young, but is that a positive thing or is it negative? And do these classes put unnecessary pressure on these kids? Are these kids encouraged to try more than one sport at this gym? Or are they only focused on getting really good at one sport or specializing? So what is the program design? Is it competition oriented or learning based, a combination? And then many people claim sport is good, but are local parents naive about potential risk and implications that come with specializing in a sport very early in life? And then I plan to interview the little gym director as well as some class instructors and then hopefully some participants as well as their parents or their guardians. So I remember in previous classes we talked a lot about early specialization and read some articles relating to that. Coakley, 1992, talks about how early specialization can lead to burnout in adolescent athletes. One of the reasons is chronic and excessive stress, but also adolescents in this study talked about how they basically had a one-dimensional identity because for their whole life or almost their whole life they were involved in one sport and really missed out on other life experiences or didn't really get to do other activities like their peers might have had the opportunity to do. So one of my questions is, do the parents of kids in local youth sport programs realize this, and how are coaches, parents, and other professionals working to prevent this from happening? So I also want to focus on injuries, and I am thinking about interviewing the U of H women's basketball trainer and just asking her questions relating to some injuries in young athletes and how those common injuries occur. And if overtraining is something that happens a lot in young athletes, and how much that can increase their risk of getting injured, as well as how can that be prevented. And then I also plan to gather some information from a YouTube video on the risk of early specialization. Dr. David Gear is an orthopedic surgeon and sports medicine specialist, and I know he has a lot of detailed information online about early specialization and injuries. And here's a clip of one of his videos on that.
Risk number one is that the kids that specialize in one sport, especially if they play that one sport for more than 8 months a year, they're at increased risk for overuse injuries. If it's an overhead and throwing sport, they have an increased risk for upper extremity overuse injuries of the shoulder and the elbow. If it's a running sport or jumping sport and they play more than 8 months a year, then they have an increased risk for lower extremity overuse injuries of the foot and the ankle and the leg and the knee. Overuse injuries go way up in kids that play that one sport more than 8 months a year.
And just to wrap up, if I do have more time in my story, I know we have a limit of 700 to 800 around that words, so I don't want to go over. But if I do have space and if it does work for my story, I'm thinking about potentially providing some statistics about overtraining and injuries. I know the Children's Hospital of Colorado website does have some detailed information about burnout and injury prevention. And then also hoping to find a real life example of an injury in a young athlete due to overtraining, and also use his or her story for my piece as well.